Please take your seat. Good evening. I'd like to call to order this work-study meeting of the Cave Creek Unified School District. Today is Tuesday, September 23rd, and it is 6 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 3.3, roll call. All members of the board are present. Members from the cabinet present are Dr. Pletnick, Dr. Jensen, and Mr. Dolezal. Item 4.1, superintendent search proposals.
President Busby, we have three companies here this evening that will present. They've got about 10 minutes and then time if there's any questions at the end. So we'd like to start with the first firm and Dr. Mark Jorgenstad from Arizona School Administrators.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for inviting the Arizona School Administrators to present tonight. I want to start by taking a moment to thank you, board members, for what you do, for the devotion that you give of your time and talents to the children of the school district, their families, the entire Cave Creek community. Your service is appreciated, and we recognize that. And I promise that whoever is the new superintendent will multiply your salaries by 10%. Okay, so we've got, I guess I don't know how well you can see that behind you, but you have it on your screens, I assume. So my name is Mark Jorgenstad. As he said, I've spent my life, many decades. I know I don't look like there's many decades, but trust me, there are. As a teacher, principal, assistant superintendent, executive director of the Arizona School Administrators, and now the last few years as a search consultant, helping districts find superintendents. We feel that ASA deserves strong consideration, and we, again, thank you for considering us, but we have an expert team. Our team members have deep roots in Arizona education. For example, they've been superintendents in Arizona. They've been the director of the Arizona School Boards Association. We've cut our chops, if you will, in Arizona at all levels of the education, from teaching in the classroom to working with governing boards. And so I welcome this opportunity. We're a nonprofit, so we price ourselves accordingly. We're not in this to make money. We're in this to try to find talented individuals to lead school districts into the future, to serve children. We've devoted our lives to serving children, and we feel like districts need someone who can devote their time and talents and also is a good fit. We've proven results. I'd say we've done probably, I don't know, a couple dozen searches the last few years. We were invited by districts to start doing this. A few years ago, we were not doing it. They said, we need your services to do this. So we've worked with boards in every county in the state, as well as very recently, just the last couple of years, in Maricopa County as well. And I've had the honor of finding superintendents, helping districts find superintendents in Apache, Navajo, Cochise, Graham, Yavapai, Santa Cruz, and Maricopa, of course, as well. So we are very familiar with Arizona. But we also do a national outreach in our search. Not all districts, but many districts want that national outreach as well. So some of the people that have been hired to be superintendents that we've facilitated the search with are from all over the country. Others are from Arizona. So you've got a reach in both directions there, both the deep roots locally and the connections for nationally. Okay, let's go on to the goals of a search. A search that we would direct, we would assume you would have these goals in mind: to select the highest qualified, best fit superintendent to lead Cave Creek into the future. someone who's the highest qualified may not always be the best fit, depending on their background, where they cut their chops. If they directed New York City Unified or LA Unified, that might not be they might be very highly qualified, might not be the best fit for the Cave Creek community. Additionally, though, we have a process goal as well that we assume you would share, that we would share with you, and that's to do the search with transparency. A group of 5 board members doesn't go into a room and come out and say, voila, here's your new superintendent, embrace this person. That's not how we would do it in a transparent manner with you. When I say we, my role would be to facilitate. Your role would be to make the decision. I'm not making the decision. I'm not involved in the making of the decision. That's what you do. We would try to bring forth a number of good candidates, and then you would screen them and choose one, or choose finalists, and so on. So I just like to make that clear. We facilitate. The board is in charge. You're running the search. We're facilitating, making sure that everything's legal, good candidates are surfaced, the process is fair, and it's transparent to the stakeholders. The other decision you would make is how much stakeholder input do you want? What form of stakeholder input do you want as well? To us, it's important that there be stakeholder input, but the decision is the governing board's. We usually see searches take 6 phases. Phase 1, where the board develops a profile, a timeline, talks about and decides on community engagement. Phase 2 is when we get really busy posting, recruiting, finding candidates. Phase 3, a screening, a paper screening by the board of maybe not all the candidates. If we get 30 of them, you may not want to paper screen 30 of them, which would probably take 10 hours, unless you'd say, I just would love a 10-hour board meeting. I've not had that experience very often. Then you choose some candidates with whom you'd like to interview and discuss the job. That's phase 4. Then phase 5, maybe of those finalists, of those candidates you interviewed, maybe you want to bring back 2 or 3 finalists. Maybe you want those finalists to participate in community engagement, to get some stakeholder reaction. Then you would interview the finalists again, and hopefully at that point decide who is the best fit and who is the best qualified. And you would then offer that person a contract, enter into contract negotiations. Here's what it looks like in the search process in a way, if you want to think of these 6 phases. On the left, that's what's done in the phases themselves. On the right, what's done in open session, the profile timeline, those decisions, open session. Selecting the candidate, determining the interview formats, those decisions are presented in open session. You may select candidates to interview in an executive session in which you're screening their paperwork and so on. When you come out of that meeting, though, in open session, it said, we will interview these people. If we've done surveys, which you may well be interested in, and we can survey electronically, we can present candidate profiles, video profiles. We can do that in many ways. Depends on what the board's interested in. We would offer these options. You would make the decisions. In the middle, executives, what happens in executive session? Remember, what happens in executive session stays in executive session, except the final decisions in open meeting are made in front of the public. But the discussion of the candidates' qualifications and so on, their paperwork, happens in executive sessions. The interview, we recommend, happens in executive session. Arizona law allows someone to request that they be interviewed in public. We've never yet had anyone request that. So there's certain things then you can see there in the middle happen in executive session, but they're all recognized and officially made into action in public, transparently, in front of the world, basically. Let's go on to the next page, duties and okay. Duties and responsibilities of ASA. We would have certain duties and responsibilities. We would consult with you throughout. We provide agenda language to search-related items so the language comports fully with the law. We'd collaborate with you on developing a timeline, publicizing the vacancy, providing related documents, facilitating a community survey if desired, communicating with all the applicants, and that's a very important part of it. We'll discuss that shortly. Scheduling the process, moderating a community forum if needed, and then very importantly, maintaining strictest confidentiality. That's just so important. Rumors start out of nothing often, or a remark inadvertently made, so that's why it's very important. We will be confidential, and I just noticed at the bottom there, you will be confidential. Your duties and responsibilities of the board are also to maintain strict confidentiality, to adhere to all the AZ statutes, refer all communications with applicants to the search consultant. That's me. If someone comes to you and said, I'd like to apply, you could say, contact Mark Jornstead. Or if you have someone you'd wish to apply, don't call them. Call me, I'll call them.
And Mark, just as a time check, we got 2 minutes,
2 minutes
before
left.
questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're doing well then, I think. I'll try to take no more than 20 then. Okay, so there's the duties and responsibilities of the board. And together then, we would look for a new superintendent. Just a couple guidelines we think it's important that the board follow a moratorium on contact with the media. Media questions, let the consultant handle that. Otherwise, it's so easy to give a sense that maybe one candidate is favored or another isn't. It's just very easy in your role to say, call our consultant. Rationale for this will support transparency and perception regarding the board's effort to conduct a fair and thorough process. And is also recommended individual board members do not contact potential superintendent applicants or finalists prior to or after the screening process. This prevents the community and candidates from any perception that this certain applicant had an advantage. We just don't want that. And things can surface so easily. Anyway, that's a very quick overview. And again, I would emphasize local roots, expert people, national reach, and a hand-in-glove approach with the governing board, where the governing board, though, is the essential decision maker. Thank you for your kind attention. Any questions?
I'm just curious if you're kind of familiar with some of the challenges that we face as a district in terms of our funding and all of that, and if you've had much experience finding candidates.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Cave Creek, and I knew your previous superintendent, third previous superintendent, Dr. Burdick, very well. Worked with her over the years for probably a decade or more, and she was not hesitant to make people aware of the difficulties that you face with the ability or inability to get overrides and bonds passed with your community, being supportive of schools, but maybe not always supportive at election time. And so almost any good candidate we would bring you, frankly, would, if they're applying in Arizona, they need to know that, not only is your situation uniquely challenging, but almost any district in Arizona, with very few exceptions, has financial challenges as well. And we know your community can be demanding of the district in ways maybe that they don't always demand of themselves in support, but they have high expectations, which is, wouldn't have it any other. You don't want a community who doesn't have high expectations, that's for sure. But it makes, and you as board members, pleasing the community, but also presenting a good education to kids. That's sometimes that can pull you in two different directions. So, and I would be well aware of that, by the way, if I dealt with the media. Thank you for the question.
What's the competitive landscape right now when it comes to superintendent search
I think,
I'll just say in our general area?
It's competitive. There's some searches going on now. I think your advantage is that you're a well-known community. Your district has a solid track record of success. Every district has had some tussles in the last few years, so you're not unique there. But this is an attractive position, and it's a good community. It's solid. You've got good kids. You've got a strong record. I would think that this would attract a lot of good candidates, especially if we can. It'd be very important in the timeline to be coming to a decision in January or February if possible. You don't want to be making that decision in May, because by then candidates will have been snapped up. So you don't want to do that. But you do want a deliberate, careful, thoughtful approach as well. That's a balancing act again. But this will attract candidates and experienced candidates, and there will be national candidates interested as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jornstead. Members of the board, next up to present is John Bash from Hazard Young A.T. and Associates.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity. We're honored to be invited to interview with you, and we bring 38 years of experience as a national search firm. And while we're a national firm, we have associates across the country from coast to coast. I'm a senior associate on the West Coast, and my wife and I have a home in Oro Valley, where I came from today. And so we've done search work here in Arizona, most recently the Phoenix Union High School District, and that was about a year and a half ago, and more recently the Mesa Public Schools. Both very successful processes, and we are delighted if you take time to reach out to your fellow board members in those districts and ask what their experience was with us. They both gave us 10 out of 10 on our customer satisfaction survey, and we believe that's well earned. My colleague, Dr. Christine McDuffie, and I would serve as your team to lead this search. Again, we both bring experience as school leaders, district leaders in just about every role, and we both have served as superintendents. We also bring you some higher education experience and a network, having done this work now for 6 years. Not only here in Arizona, but up and down the West Coast especially, and then over 100 associates that we network with, again, across the country. We do become your trusted partner in this, and it is a collaborative, customized approach that we use around a skeleton that has been proven to be effective. I mentioned the 38 years of experience. We also have experience with every size, every community, rural, urban, suburban, with all the diversity that comes with school districts and public school districts, especially across the country. We believe this is the most important decision you make as board members, and for that reason, we not only take it very seriously, we want to be here for you, answering your questions regarding this process, particularly those of you who may not have been through a search before. And board development is another service our firm provides. Both Christine and I facilitate board development workshops beyond this search work. We conduct about 1,600 searches per year. If I scale that down to associates, Christine and I are partners, and we do about 5 or 6 searches a year. And so we limit it to that to make sure we're in no way spread too thin, and don't want to be sharing with you, gosh, we're not available then. We want you to walk away feeling like you were our priority. But again, the national data there gives you a sense of the kind of networking we have, not only with associates, but prospective candidates that we maintain relationships with. In Arizona, this isn't on the slide, but I want to call out that because of those 2 recent searches, we've developed now a network of folks we believe are ready for the leadership opportunity you have here. This is a remarkable school district in terms of the success and the points of pride that would make this one, frankly, quite easy to market. And yes, you're not without your challenges, and we've investigated that. And to your earlier question, I can tell you that yes, we do find candidates. The best candidates we find are the ones that view those challenges as opportunities, many of whom bring a track record of addressing those challenges in innovative and creative ways, knowing there are some hard and fast things, particularly with financial challenges, that you don't control. So that which you do control is really what you zero in on as a board in evaluating candidates and what they might bring. And with Mr. Dolezal departing, I want to congratulate him too, because this success in a place, particularly with the student outcomes you've enjoyed, doesn't happen by accident. So congratulations to you and your team.
Takes a great team.
Our process, like my colleague, we have 4 phases. And I'm not going to read the slide to you, but I am going to share that you are in the first wave of superintendent search timing. And so you're in the best position right now to attract the strongest pool compared to districts that might go out in midwinter and or after the holiday break. And so this is the very best time to be engaging in this. Our process generally goes 3 to 4 months, but again, we're able to adapt that. If one of your high interests is in being competitive with other Arizona districts that are searching or other regional districts that are searching, we can share ideas with you on how to streamline and or condense the timeline so that you're selecting ahead of some of those places. Stakeholder engagement is, in the vast majority of searches we do, a high priority. And again, in researching Cave Creek, we know you have a highly engaged community, folks that value their participation in the process, particularly your parents and your staff. And so we have a robust process we engage in, but we also bring those strategies to you as part of our planning effort in collaboration with you to make sure that we're engaging in the strategies that reach the most people and give folks multiple and diverse opportunities to weigh in and share their input with you, all the while clarifying that this is a school board decision. And I'm sure you welcome that input, but we want to make sure folks understand. We talked about a timeline in our proposal. You'll see on the when tile there on this slide that general timeline. What we find in doing these presentations is as the board takes their time to decide on a firm, sometimes then that needs to be adjusted once you select a firm to work with. This slide just gives you a bit of what we do with recruiting, and we believe this positions us at an advantage. Any firm is going to advertise the position. We have a network of advertising both regionally and nationally that we engage in. We also activate all the primary state job boards with the posting if we're selected. We handle all of the candidate interface and communication, and we do an intensive pre-screening and reference checking process as part of our vetting. We do bring you every candidate, so we will not screen candidates out. We believe that's your job. But we will bring you a robust summary in addition to the application materials that will be in a dedicated board portal where we encourage you to start with our summary. It saves you significant time. And then if you want to dive deeper, all of the application materials will be there for you. We invite you to do that individually and give you ample time ahead of a special board meeting to engage in that so that we're not facing a lengthy meeting. We're instead talking about those candidates that surface to the top of your list. We do assist you in facilitating board deliberations, and we sometimes have boards ask us what we think in terms of the best candidate, and we do resist answering that question. We turn that right back around, and we help you consider the criteria you've developed after considering the input, but this truly is your decision. This slide just has some data on it. I'm only going to call out one that we think is results driven and we're proud of. 95% of the superintendents we've placed in the last 10 years stay the full term of their first contract. And that's in part because of the vetting that we do, and that vetting includes your bottom lines. So before we bring candidates to you and share that vetting summary with you, we're asking some hard questions of candidates to make sure the match is truly there in terms of what you expect, not just the experience and education that you're looking for.
And Mr. Bass, 2 minutes.
Okay. Our select phase generally includes 2 rounds of interviews, a slate of semifinalists, typically 5 or 6, culling that down to 2 or 3 finalists. And it's at the finalist phase that we re-engage your community, your stakeholders in meeting the finalists as a typical approach. The first round is usually the board only in an executive session interview. I mentioned the board portal. This is just an example of the kinds of things that you would see there. It's a warehouse of all the artifacts, a calendar, all those things that you may want to go see at your leisure. We mentioned our fee. We just throw this in again. The left column shows all the things that we include. It does include a Google-based survey that we develop with you to gather feedback. It mirrors the kinds of questions we ask at forums. But there is a research-based survey if your district, for example, is looking at updating the strategic plan. We have national advertising packages, and for this package, we're recommending the ALIS and NASB advertising to ensure that diverse candidates, underrepresented candidates are seeing the opportunity, and we encourage them to apply as we do anyone who would be a good fit for you. We also have an independent background check we can talk about when that time comes. This is just a summary here on why we think we'd be a great selection for you, a great partner with you in this important process. We bring the experience, we bring a student-centered focus, our regional and national network, along with our experience as senior associates. And we wish you the best with your decision and are happy to take any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board, and then our last presentation tonight, please welcome Jennifer Tanner from McPherson and Jacobson.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, cabinet. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to present tonight. Just to introduce myself a bit, I live in the West Valley, all the way in the West Valley. I have been out in Surprise since 2001. I have a marketing background. I run my own marketing business, but I also served on a governing board for 12 years at the Dysart Unified School Board. And I served from 2008 to 2020. And at my retirement of a board member, I was approached by McPherson Jacobson. We actually used them to do our superintendent search. And they were looking to have not only superintendents as consultants, but also delve into board members. And it was a way I thought I could still stay involved without being that involved. Kind of gave me a little bit of a break for a bit. But it was a great experience, and I learned a lot, and I know the weight that you carry and how that feels, and you know how much this means to your community. So I understand where you're at. I do also, it was a surprise tonight, I worked with Dr. Pletnick's mother, and she was the superintendent I worked with for many years. So if you want any stories on him, I do have plenty. But again, it's an exciting time. It is a heavy weight on the shoulders, but it also is a great experience to be able to set the tone for the future years for your district. Since you couldn't talk Dr. Dolzel into staying, we're here, but it can be a great experience for not only the board as a whole, but as your community, and getting buy-in and having that experience, not only experiencing it with you and how this works, but feeling like they have that buy-in, that they're able to give, their perspectives of what it's like to be, whether it's a staff member, whether it's a student. Those things are important. So I will just go through quickly. Our firm began in 1991. I was in high school at the time, so they've been around a long time. They are based out of Omaha, Nebraska. It's a national search firm. So I will kind of go through a little bit, basically tonight, of our process. So there are those lovely people that you see all the time. We're excited about your board. One thing that I do want to touch on, there was, a question about as far as, interest in this district, Cave Creek District, and I will say one thing that stands out to me is that I love that your board just recently adopted new norms of practice. And just as much as you'll want to look into your future superintendent and history and things, they look at who is on the board, and they are just as curious about you. And so showing that you had this recent adoption of your board norms, that speaks volumes to future superintendents. So I commend you for doing that, and I read it, and it's great. So good job on that. Let's see here. So about us. We believe every student is entitled to a high-quality education, and that quality education is dependent upon quality leadership. That leadership comes both from the board and from the superintendent. So our goal is to find the best candidate for Cave Creek Unified School District. We are well established. We have, I said, been around since 1991. We have over 130 consultants nationwide. Have national recruiters, local consultants. I love that aspect of it, that you have both local consultants that will work with you as well as national. You get the best of both worlds. So there's a lot of boards that have concern whether or not a national firm would have the understanding of the Arizona laws and the challenges and things that happen in Arizona. So you have the local consultants which understand those challenges, but then you also have the national piece, which are very tuned in nationally with what's going on across the country. And like I said earlier, there are sometimes maybe certain qualities that you're going to be looking specifically for in a superintendent that maybe someone from a national perspective would have that maybe you don't find here. So it's a great way to have both represented. We, like the others, we customize the search process to meet the district's needs. So as you come together and determine what those standards are going to be for each candidate, it is a board-led process. We also take, if the board decides that you want to include stakeholders, we help facilitate all of that, make sure that that runs smoothly, it's all equitable across all stakeholder groups, and we've helped facilitate all of that. And then we have a great track record of successful placements. I think I read nationally the tenure of a superintendent is anywhere from 2.5 to 4 years. It's not very long. So with McPherson and Jacobson, I believe roughly about 80% of superintendents that we placed for 5 years are still there, 60% for the last 10 years, and then superintendents who've been there 15 years or longer, we have 40% are still within those roles. So we do a great job of successfully placing and finding the top candidates so the board can choose the best fit for their district. We've conducted over 1,000 successful searches. Kind of just give you a pinpoint of where some of those searches could be, and then those are where all our consultants are across the map. So I think you know the education world is actually very small, and so it's amazing how we put the word out that there is an opening in Cave Creek, and we send that out to every single consultant across the nation and encourage them to talk to the people they know who they would be who think may be interested in a job like this. So we utilize our consultants nationwide. We also have about 3,000 superintendents that are in our database that want updates when we say there's now an opening, and if we list a job position, that there are multiples that are continually looking into that website to see what's available and what the opportunities are. There's myself. I don't know if many of you know Dr. Doug and Dr. Christy Wilson. They've been in Arizona for a long time. They are also consultants, and they would help facilitate with this. Dr. Steve Joel, who you may have, I don't know if any of you spoke with him, he's the national, he's from Nebraska, and he would also be involved with this search as well. Again, interested by districts of all size. I gave you all a booklet, and it has in there a plethora of schools that we have helped, their size, the location, so have the opportunity to look through that. We believe fully in transparency. We work only for the Board of Education. We have exclusive partnerships with NSBA, we also with AASA, and we stand strong on our references. So I also encourage you to contact districts. The current ones that we have recently worked with here, we worked with Peoria, and we worked with Litchfield Park. And so encourage you to also contact them and ask what their experience was. And
Time check.
Wow, okay. So we don't have 6 or 4 phases, we do 5. We're just right in between. But phase 1 is where we come to the board. You would establish your protocols of who that candidate is that you're looking for. We do tell you, you have at any time you can know who is applying for the district, but we will only bring to you what fits within that criteria. So for example, if you had said, we only want someone with a doctorate, and that was part of your criteria, we are not going to bring you somebody who did not meet that criteria. So we will bring those names to you, and then we will also, our phase 2, and then at that time we determine your protocols, what you want as far as standards. We establish whether or not you want stakeholder groups. We go through a timeline. We would get all that on phase 1. Phase 2 is we gather stakeholder input. Again, you determine which groups you would want us to meet with. All the questions we ask each group are exactly the same. We train someone within that group to compile, to gather all that information, which is sealed and given to the board, so you have that data to look over. And we then advertise, and we actively recruit. Then we read, evaluate, and start completing reference checks. These are pretty, I would say, surface reference checks at the beginning, but as we go deeper, the reference checks get harder and harder. And as soon as you've determined your short list of who you want, then we go do a deep dive of reference checks, criminal, financial, educational. that is where we really will hone in, is a sound background check. And then we help assist the board in selecting final candidates to be interviewed. They submit videos so that you can also not just see on paper, but get a feel for their how they speak, how they answer questions. And then you determine your finalists. At that point, we make that public. You bring them to the district. The stakeholder groups can meet with them, board meets with them, and we help assist the board in making a decision. The one final thing I want to say, our phase 5 is a little bit different, where we come in and we help establish performance objectives. So we'll come in, help you and the new superintendent establish those objectives, and we do basically a summit to be able to establish those goals for the superintendent.
Good.
All right, sorry. And we do a guarantee for 2 years. Any questions? I'm so sorry. I got talking too much.
I was really intrigued by that phase 5. Can you kind of go over how that looks once you've got the superintendent in place and how you manage
Yes.
that one?
So we work with the board and the new superintendent. We establish performance objectives. So it's the goals that the board would want the new superintendent to focus on throughout the year, for the year 1. And so this phase, we stay with the board for the year, for a full year, to continually work with this process. They're beyond, their objectives beyond the day-to-day. And once they've been identified, the board members will be asked what you will accept as evidence to say whether or not the superintendent is working towards and accomplishing the goals that the board has set. So we take that time seriously, because we want to ensure that who you have chosen is a good fit for Cave Creek.
Any other questions? Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to thank everybody again for coming tonight and presenting, Dr. Jornstad, Mr. Bash, and Mrs. Tanner. And then just, I know as we'll continue to talk later, but looking ultimately perhaps for an action item from the board on a selection at the next October 14th, which would then allow for the October 28th work study to really be focused in on honing in with whoever that selection was and moving the process. So just so it's publicly known, kind of there's the timeline we're continue to look at moving forward.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Item 5, action consent. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. And then for 6.1?
Yeah, 6.1, we'll come down and move that, and we'll come to our center seats.
Do you want to move that big giant thing?
Do not let me leave my phone here. So I need to not have me. Yes. I just gotta understand.
Play Rochambeau on the. Well, microphone.
Point one every direction.
All right. We're at item 6.1, the superintendent search proposals.
Yeah, so I know we just heard them, so I don't know if you're prepared, or want to open up any discussion amongst yourselves. This is really for you guys in terms of the search process. So if we want to, again, I just wanted to reiterate, again, in my mind, I will continue to help you all as long as you want me to, but looking at the next timelines and things, the 14th would be a chance to bring and make an actual decision. Again, there's no decisions tonight, but so if you guys want to talk, by all means, we'll open it up for that. But then just that idea that maybe the 14th, someone would come with a motion to select the search agency. And like I said, and then the next work study would really be digging into that work with that company who was selected. So open it up for you guys if you want to, or if we're just...
I'm just curious what in the past the process has been, because this is my first experience going through this. So just kind of like how in the past you've gone through,
Go ahead, President Buzz.
like deciding.
Well,
Inform us all.
exactly, what do you want, like the whole?
Well, I mean, so we have three.
The last time we did this, the entity that we selected, it was pretty much exactly how each one of these entities have explained it. They're going to go out and do the search.
I did want to clarify. I think you had talked about before, though, that it was really kind of, there was one brought to you. There wasn't a multitude of choice.
No,
Right.
we had a choice of one. Okay? No. We did not have this process. Now, what the one entity brought was a selection of applicants, but they pre-screened it and they picked who we were going to see. And so we never had the opportunity to see all of the applications. So.
That was one of the ones that we saw.
No, that was somebody else. So, in a nutshell, and once we went through the applications, we spent time, I think we must have been in an executive session, coming up with interview questions, and then we hammered out interview questions, and then candidates came in for interviews. The firm did their due diligence for us, did the background checks, so on and so forth. And then we had a community forum as well. And I think that was by Zoom.
Well, in terms of like deciding among the three, does anybody have any thoughts on, like, I guess what I want to know is when I walk away tonight, what's my process? Am I going to go through each of these? Do we have questions that we want to submit to them?
Well, each one of these firms, they each present something different. And collectively, as a board, we need to decide what attributes we're most interested in as far as who's going to help us with this search. We have locally based, local total Arizona all the way to national. And so somewhere in there, we've got to figure out which one of those is going to best fulfill our needs. So.
I really liked the board portal that HYA was. I liked their board portal. I feel like that would be a nice way for us to view all the information on candidates in one spot before we had to meet. I like that John was local as well. Even though they brought a national search perspective, I like that he's local to Arizona. His experience all came from Arizona.
I guess, Vice President Ulmer, just to clarify, I mean, ultimately, we would put an agenda item on there, and it would be up for a board member to make a motion. Again, If that doesn't get a second, that motion dies, but if it gets a second, then there is discussion. You can always amend that motion. You can second the emotion, that's a song, but you can, sorry. And then ultimately it would go for a vote. So that's the process of how it would go at that point in time. If you guys wanted to send us your top and we can communicate that out or something through there, we can work with you on all of that, but ultimately that's where we need to get to.
Plotnick, well, let me ask you this first. Where will the funds come from to pay for this?
Thank you.
We actually can use multiple accounts on this one, so we can use the cash side of the house, and we can use our special projects funds. I mean, we could use M&O as well at that point, but for this amount, I don't foresee it being an
How much
issue.
do we have? I mean, do we have a budget for what we need to stay within for this? Since I'm not sure it's really a budget item.
Yeah, I would say, any three of these would be well within the budget of what the district could afford on this. So cost-wise, based upon kind of what was presented and what I've seen, it would be fine, either three. So.
Okay.
One thing I noticed, which I guess just now, and I didn't ask them, was HYA had this price match. Is that to any of them? Any of the other consultants? Would we just ask them directly? That one did too?
That one actually, the McPherson one's interesting because it had the guarantee and the 1-year follow. And let's be honest.
So exactly, does that mean
does that mean?
if it doesn't work out in the first year, then they'll go back and find us a new person?
That's the way I understood what she said. And then the 1 year of just kind of putting the rails on KPIs and governance of getting performance, as well as kind of like there was a tier. That's one thing I did like is kind of the tiered approach of like what are the goals and objectives, and then what are the measurables, and being able to ensure those can be proved, not just. So, I do like their approach on that one.
That was something that I think this might have been my number one choice because of that, and because that's always a difficult conversation. You know, this is a few times we've been through this now, and trying to go through that process seems like if you have a person that's been there from the person coming in and staying with, it seems like that would make it a little bit more streamlined, easy, workable process. In my mind, just having that entity, you know that it's going to be there for that whole duration. So I think that might be kind of a benefit.
Well, and 1 and 3 both had really good long-range criteria is for or percentage of retention. Because again, 2 to 4 years.
Yep.
So I do like some of the stats that were thrown out. 3 definitely hammered him hard on more of a range. 1 had a good overall principle, but some of those ones have been there 10 plus years. I was trying to listen to stickiness. Like, how do you get a strong leader that can, and then obviously the level of references might help us kind of understand, like, what was that gain?
The ASA, they're a nonprofit,
Yep.
so they have a completely different philosophy and approach. You
Yep.
know, they're not in it for personal gain. They're in it to make sure that they do right for the education process. And so, not that that makes a difference. They just have a completely different philosophy. These other 2 are going to do price matching. So are they going to match what ASAs would be charging?
I'm going to probably say no on that one. You can see the difference in presentations, so that'll
Well,
tell you nonprofit
it's-
versus profit.
It's, yeah.
I mean,
That's why I'm asking the question, because,
No.
you know, you're comparing a nonprofit to to for-profit entities, which
100%.
is completely different.
Yeah. The one thing I did think was interesting, I mean, on this McPherson and Jacobson, but in Arizona, they've only hired 5 superintendents in the last 5 years out of all of this data.
Yep.
And HYA actually, they have Mesa listed, and I think HYA said their most recent one was Mesa Public School District as well. So it'd be interesting why Mesa chose one 5 years ago and chose the other last year, or just most recently.
Welcome to the
Same district.
So as an offer, if there are questions you'd like us to reach out to the companies with, if you want to send those, I think we can do that if that makes the most sense. For us to reach out and be able then to give you those answers, to report out to those. Just an offer again, however we can support you guys.
No,
A good idea, if everybody would come up with some questions in the next few days,
yeah, do we want to make a target like by end of day Thursday, Friday?
by Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to be out of town tomorrow, so we got to do it by Friday. So anything else anybody wants to say about superintendent search?
I mean, I definitely think their perspective was interesting. Again, yes, we're a good district. I just think that the challenges are the challenges.
It's challenges.
Is it on?
Of the three, I think probably, for obvious reasons, ASA is probably most dialed into who we are,
Yeah.
and they probably have overall a better understanding where we've been, what the challenges are. There are challenges that all school districts are going to have, but we get our own special set.
Right. But then again, that's why, number
Yeah.
2, the second one had a good, HYA had a good point of like, the one they wrung out was their thought process on, let me give you something different. And that's a fair statement. When you think about how much education is changing, and I know a lot of people admit, get an experienced superintendent. Okay, but what does experience mean?
Sure.
The game is changing. Like, we've got to address things that we can't, just kind of say, well, this is the circumstance, right? Like, we talk about enrollment, we talk about demographers and all this stuff. Like, that's nothing we need creativity and innovation. Like, some of the stuff that the current admins in the cabinet are doing with some of these repurposing of buildings, we need more of that. We've got to rethink. So whoever's coming in can't just be like, hey, here's my playbook and it worked over here. It's not going to work here.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest concern, regardless of whether it's firm 1, 2, or 3.
Well, the last time we went through this process, that was actually a concern that we had. And how many years ago was that? 4? 5? Yeah.
Right before we
Yeah.
came in.
And even then, we recognize the uniqueness of Cave Creek. And there were some candidates that they looked really good on paper, and they, frankly, they interviewed well, but we were still concerned, is this individual what's this individual going to be able to do with what we have here?
Right.
And as you're pointing out, not everybody is as pliable or forward-thinking. And, creativity and forward-thinking is probably pretty critical at this point. So, anything else? Okay. Item 6.2, field usage and rental rates.
Well, we just bring this to you as to give you the most current updates. I believe we have a 2 o'clock final walkthrough tomorrow afternoon. If you have not been down to the field, I have. It's I'm very impressed with Shaw and their thoroughness and their ability. Again, we got in at a point where no one else was really doing it, so multiple crews that nobody else ever gets, and that. So I am very excited for Senior Sunrise, as the seniors will be the first one ever on that field Friday morning, and then our first home game Friday afternoon. But as we look at this, you know, because of what happened, we had to move a home game somewhere else, and that gave us cause to contact our surrounding districts and ask them, what do we do? How, you know, what is this? What is the prices? So, Dr. Pletnick, if you want to go over that, and then just as again, there's no action tonight, of course, as you all know, but food for thought, and what are we thinking moving forward about field usage, rental rates, et cetera?
As Mr. Dolezal stated, we did move one of our home games to Paradise Valley, which then we ended up paying a bill at Paradise Valley for that game, for the renting of that field. So we got to see kind of what the facility usage and our neighboring districts was as we looked for alternative placements for that football game. So in front of you, I just printed out the Paradise Valley School District facility usage. I also printed out the Deer Valley usage. So I stapled them together. So as you go to the back, you will notice on the last page, you'll see the turf field usage in Deer Valley. So again, as we're looking at the cost of this field, we know we're sitting somewhere around $750,000. Again, it did come in under budget at this point. We're going to have our final meeting tomorrow with Shaw and go over just what we need to do to take care of this field moving forward to ensure it lasts the 10 to 12 years that Shaw is stating. So what that's going to entail is, again, we'll have our water cannons installed, so there will be some water usage, especially in the summertime as it gets hot and that turf heats up. And then there's always the infill through the life of the field. But on top of that, we do want to ensure that we're grooming the field to make sure that we have maximum life capacity. So that's going to be our maintenance, getting logistically set in order to take care of the field, but it's also going to be some form of an annual cost to us as well, which we're going to cover tomorrow on what that cost would be. Part of that cost is, you know, if we had a company such as Shaw or another turf company come through, do an annual maintenance on the field, we can do that. If we rent the field out, the more we rent it out, the more times they're going to have to come out based upon the amount of hours that are placed on the field. That's a nice thing about this product that we did purchase is it's durable, and we know if you take care of it, it's going to last even with high usage on this field. But the key is it's going to have to be taken care of, and professional maintenance would be advisable as well on that. So it comes down to, as we look at, and I also included our current rental fees, and you can see our current rental fees are below our neighboring districts of Deer Valley and Paradise Valley. So this is where we've begun the discussion of how we want the field usage to look moving forward, everyday use versus some other neighboring districts. I know, Mr. Dolezal, you spoke to 2 districts today.
Yeah, well, last week. I know Wickenburg, Chandler, Buckeye don't allow usage of their fields. They just restrict it to the high school use only. Several other districts, I mean, Deer Valley, Scottsdale, Paradise Valley do allow use in that. I think for the board, where is the balance? Because, again, you've heard me say dozens of times, we are part of the community, we are for the community. But again, our first priority has to be our kids and having that. So just kind of for you guys, where does that sit? And again, looking at that, it's not that we can't do high usage, but high usage means more high taken care of, which comes at a cost. And I will tell you, Dr. Pletnick, you can do numbers, but it appears we're losing money on rental. We're not recouping the money on rental fees that it costs to actually upkeep them. So how do we want to do that, and how do we continue to be great community stewards and partners with all of our groups, but also ensure that we're fiscally solvent moving ahead and not losing money?
And to add to that numerically, and I sat down with Mr. Santina and I talked to him and I asked him, okay, what do the rentals look like? What do typical usage times look like? And so we sat down and he kind of estimated based upon the rentals he's seen. And if we look at it, if you look at one of our sports, say 4 days a week, they use it for 4 hours, 1 day a week. They use it for 5 hours for gameplay, for example. You're looking with 16 weeks, somewhere around 340 hours of usage. As we rent it out, it is rented out at times, according to Mr. Santina, for 3 hours a night, and then on the weekends there could be 5 hours of games. And so between August and December, he estimated at about 540 hours on the field, and between January through May, with multiple sports, another 620. So somewhere along the lines of just under 1,200 hours extra. And so if you look at, school usage, soccer season, football season, track, they're on the field, but not necessarily using the field. It's almost double the time renting it than we're actually using it. And so if we divide that by approximately, the 180,000 that we're going to be making a payment on each year, that comes out to about $155 an hour. And if you actually look at the rates of Paradise Valley, you can see that Paradise Valley under Class 2, which Class 2 for them would be the nonprofits, they're at between the exterior bathroom and the turf, they're at $150 an hour. So they're right about that $140 an hour. And Deer Valley is also at on that Class 2 rental, they're at $100 with lights, $158 an hour, and just above $100 an hour without lights. So if you look at our current rental rates, we're well below that amount. And again, based upon the hours of use and the cost to us over the next 5 years, that would be one thing that I would advise to examine on the cost. Now, again, very careful balance, as Mr. Dolezal said. Part of the community, we know, and especially in this community, the community depends upon us. So where do we strike that balance of turf field usage or other field usage and meeting that demand from the community?
Currently our rate's only $60 an hour.
Yes. We're half. Correct.
Do we do that key deposit? Do we do the key deposit that I'm noticing TV does?
Not that I know of, no.
Because they get lost. Is that what you're saying? They don't have to walk away.
Yeah, they do.
So is this?
We'll charge for the locker rooms typically, and in my discussions with Mr. Santina, the bathrooms, they will open up those bathrooms. That's again, I broke down the costs based upon our government obligation contract, but there also is the cost of the cleaning. ABM does have to come in and clean those bathrooms in the field house down there. So there are those additional fees. And that does not also take in our electrical costs. So as we look at that.
And just, do you remember what it was for us to rent for the night at North Canyon? I want to.
Somewhere, I want to say 3,000.
I think it was a mid 3,000s.
3,000.
Because on top of that, we had to, because they required that we had their staff, which is again another thing, so that their staff had to be there. Again, they were great hosts. I contacted their superintendent. They did an amazing job. Was great to work with. But other things I worry about is we've just talked about the turf now. But again, there's a track that anybody who comes onto the, what are outside groups, other wear and tears that are happening on, for instance, the track, because whoever gets to come on the infield, so is it a matter of, only players and coaches can be on there now? Like, what are some of those things that we need to maybe consider putting in place? The hard part for us is finding them the manpower for somebody to be there to actually enforce or hold those standards and things like that. So that's just another piece. Again, because I know renting North Canyon, we were required to have a certain amount of their staff there and cover that too. So it was field usage, but it was also staffing and things like that.
So how much would it be for us to have reversed it then and have North Canyon come work here? Well, how much would that have been for us to, well, how much would we have charged that?
Man, putting me on the spot. So if we went from, like, say, 4 to 10 o'clock, so we would look at our class 2, 4 to 11? 4 to 10 or I would have to look at the invoice. 11? Okay, so 7 hours. Just for the nighttime field usage, just for the field would be $420. That's our varsity field for Class 2 rental for nighttime usage. The exterior restrooms technically would be $5 an hour according to our schedule, and the locker rooms would be $12 an hour.
And what about the staff? Would we have to do that?
The custodian, what we list as our custodian rate, if we did have custodians, it would be $30 an hour, a minimum of 2 hours. The one issue with $30 an hour is we don't have staff, so that would be overtime for our staff or ABM to come out.
So
Yes.
significantly less than the $3,000.
Yes.
Do you have a recommendation of what you would?
This is just bringing this in.
Well, I know. No, I'm not asking.
I'm sure they got an idea about how we went to break even.
Yeah, well, I'm just asking, where do you see that break-even point?
If you look at, if you take our usage and if we keep the same kind of rental hours out, as I looked at that, where you take the cost and you divide it by the hours between our sports teams using it, as well as, again, rentals, you're looking at just for the field usage somewhere around $100 an hour, and that's without any kind of electricity on it or the maintenance costs. The annual maintenance cost of the field is going to cost us as well. So you can say in a competitive market somewhere between 100 and 150, which are our neighboring districts, would be within that scope.
And even other options could be okay. Well, maybe some of these groups they're using that for their games where there's that's, but we might have other fields and they could use other fields that aren't that as expensive. The grass field, that are more of the practice things and times like that, where it's not the same cost. So again, we would be wanting to be flexible and work with groups, but that may be something to consider as well. Right, we're going to, yes, you can still practice and that's less expensive on these fields. And then if you want the games, because that is something that Buckeye did when I was talking with Dr. Beebe, is especially like championship things or big things, like they did still host those. So they said there was nothing regular on their fields, but when there was a community championship or something like that, and he said it made it more of a big deal for those kids that got there, because that was, you actually got to play on the big field, right? So that would be another consideration.
And the other interesting thing is the high school Ms. Reno has worked with some companies with lining the fields, and there's robotic linings that we may be going into contracting with. So if you actually look at our practice field at the high school, it's precision lined, all done by a GPS robot. So we have that ability to work now with our grass fields.
And we could even do that as an add-on to the groups that, like, we'll paint your lines and they will be exact. So that would be something that could be added on to those, whether they're practice fields or game fields.
So how many, okay, so obviously you're talking mainly about Cactus Shadow's primary field in all of these numbers, correct? So, no.
Yeah.
So how many, so we've got a field at Horseshoe Trails, right? Or no, sorry, I'll start with Lone Mountain. Let's just, Lone Mountain, and then how many practice fields do we have currently up here? We have the primary one right on the street.
So you've got this one right behind us.
Yep.
Lacrosse is off in there. Soccer is off in there. You've got Black Mountains as well. Again, football, soccer, often use those. You've got the field just below us here. That one's right now, I think our freshmen are using that as football practice. When we put the road that went behind, it now only goes, I think it's between 70 and 80 yards, and it's only got field goal posts on one end. So it's not a full field, but again, suitable for practice and things like that. You've got some other space at the Desert Arroyo, the ball fields that are back there. We've got the varsity baseball field, the freshman JV baseball field, softball, same thing. We've got those fields. Even the throwing area that robot can line it too. Desert Sun has a backfield. Yes, so then Sonoran Trails has fields down below. You've got the Horseshoe Trails, the Little League, all the way down to where they play right on the, I forgot that road. It's the road between Joe Max and, it's like 52nd, I think. It's the street that goes between Joe Max and Pinnacle Vista. There's big open fields. There's soccer down there. I think that's Desert Willow has some, but it's not. That one's not used a whole lot.
I can definitely see like a menu system of kind of like pick your,
Yeah, well, PV has it laid out like that. I mean, currently our turf field is less than their grass fields, it looks like, rental rates, so.
Yeah.
Dr. Plotnick, the usage hours that you initially outlined, was that including the school usage, or was that outside groups?
It
additional
was
1,200 was additional.
separated to both. So if we look at outside, estimated again, outside organizations over August to December, those 20 weeks, about 550 hours, about 600 hours between January and May, between all the various athletics. If you look at 16 weeks of one high school sport, approximately 350 hours.
Okay. Any more questions?
And I did find one of the invoices for Paradise Valley, which was about $2,300 for the one invoice for facility usage. And I would have to look to see what the.
And there were multiple invoices.
Correct.
So ultimately, what you're telling us, we are way underpriced. Okay. All righty then. Item 6.3, transportation salaries and/or stipends.
President Gear, members of the board, this is just a topic you had kind of asked, at the last board meeting, you approved a decompression for the bus drivers to kind of get that in line, and then asked kind of to bring this topic back, so we brought it back here. I'll open it up to Dr. Plotnick, but it was kind of, some questions that started being asked by you all about, what can we do? So this is opening up to those questions, and we can do our best to answer those. Dr. Plotnick, I don't know if you want to start, or board members, you just want to ask a question.
I could lead with, I think where it was going was, the question was, obviously with kind of the leveling, just given this year and the kickoff and the strain, I think part of it was just discussing a stipend, but also kind of what are those consequences, right? Because it's like we don't have a blank check. You can't just keep giving people money. So what are those things that we look at or should consider? And what have you considered? I mean, ultimately, this is you guys presenting to us, but just given what's been going on, it's just trying to find that happy medium to make sure that, you know, we do right by the people that securely get our students from point A to point B.
It's a careful balance. As you saw the budget presentation, you saw we have about 2.6 million estimated in carry forward at this point. So any stipends that we would put in moving forward would not be equated into that. So we would be eating either some of that carry forward, or we would be looking at potentially where do we have cost savings in other parts of that M&O in order to pay out any kind of stipend. So that's really just looking at the budget and deciding, you know, what you would prioritize.
Well, and I know we looked into, there weren't many districts that did stipends. I think stipends are hard because it becomes something that's not, you know, is it sustainable? Is it a one-year thing? Which is why, again, we brought to you a 1% increase. It was, I know it was a pittance, but it was something that was permanent and stayed, as opposed to those one-time things. But
yeah, and Dr. Hendrickson left with me a piece of paper. He did some research and said, "Here you go," so I can present that.
Yeah. Can we cut into your Mai Tai time really quick?
But if you look at some of the districts he looked at, Higley provided a $1,500 stipend, Kyrene $750 quarterly, Tempe Union no stipend, Tempe L no stipend, Queen Creek no stipend. Chandler had a very detailed stipend system where it included back pay, included a quarterly stipend of $500, and also included hard to fill a pilot, and these were all pilot programs, but a pilot hard to fill route stipend, and so they have definitely a more tiered system on how they figure their stipend, but you can see it's kind of a mixed bag of who offers a stipend and not.
And then it raises the question, okay, what you do for one. There are plenty of greatly appreciated and perhaps not compensated as much as we would like groups, and what we do for one, which is again where we try to be consistent with those things. And again, just to remembering, you know, so can we do it? Yes. Where's the risk? You have what we're estimating our carry forward to be, and that money just probably comes from there. Now, again, I think we budgeted for more bus drivers than we currently have. So right now we're currently saving some money because we don't have them. Now we are trying to fill those positions.
Right.
You know, so that's.
And that's
That's
where
the
some
budget.
of that compression,
Yeah, the
why we
compression's
could
gonna
afford
make-
the compression is because we did have those vacant spots. And so
You're
when
eating
Dr.
it.
Hendrickson came to me and said, what do you think budget-wise? Well, we have open positions. We can certainly use some of those vacancies in order, or the vacancy savings to make sure this happens, at least on that side.
How short are we right now as far as bus drivers? How many we want versus how many we need?
Well, the last presentation, now we have some hiring in the process, but we were 11 and 15 is really where we should be. Plus, that does not include some of the, I believe, the 925 drivers. Yeah.
Correct.
So to fill the routes, 15. Mhm.
And she's getting super
And again,
creative
not
too.
perfect, but 11 out of 15.
Like, God bless her.
That's. But we need 15. Well, right, 18 is what we want. But again, when we look at our neighbors who are at 40% of what they want, again, it doesn't make it any easier for us, but we're not alone in this battle and challenge right now.
Just as a side note, with the bus driver shortage, I think this is a shortage across the country because I recently was reading an article about some very unhappy parents in another state because bus routes were getting canceled at the drop of a hat. And so, not that there's comfort in that, but it is, along with teacher shortage, this is a national issue.
Correct. Well, and I do think, I mean, hats off to Director Suter and her approach to things, too, because she is kind of, again, like what we talked about up there about reimagining. She's looking at reimagining the way how to employ the white buses more to get in and out more efficiently than the big yellow bus running through a neighborhood and generating 15 to 20-minute lag time. So there are, I definitely think there's some good ideas there that do have some financial reward. So it's just trying to navigate that. I'm with you on that. I hate the word stipend. I'd use the word bonus in this situation because you got to look at the pay scale and go, hey, where could I go get a job for X amount? That's I'm going to call low stress because a bus full of screaming kids sometimes can be not fun. Take a ride. Watch
Did you say no stress?
Well, yeah. I mean, a little bit a low stress job. They exist. Hey, they do exist. No, I'm saying it's high stress.
I thought you were saying that bus drivers is low stress, and I was going to.
Oh yeah, let me walk this. Let me walk this back really quick. For what they get paid, and what they have to contend with, there are hourly wage jobs out there that are lower stress, that don't have screaming noise background and putting in a couple 100 miles a day. So. We have to be aware of that. So I hate the word stipend. I would just use the bonus for the fact that it's been a rough out of the gator. And maybe that's kind of more or less where I was trying to take the conversation. Because I think in stipend you get in trouble and then we open up other doors, to your point. And especially after our last board meeting and operations as a whole. I mean, yes, I understand that we're picking at certain scabs that could start to create other problems. But I think we've got to look at all of it and try and figure out how to navigate. Well, again, that's what I'm saying. It's
Any salary enhancement.
Yeah. Again, fancy words. Either way, money's going out. Let's just call it what it is. We all know the dangers that brings to the conversation, but I think it's just the unfortunate reality of where we are is we have to have the uncomfortable conversations.
Well, we do, but, you spend for one, you got to spend for more.
And there is a differentiation, too, that can be brought in looking at Chandler's drivers. It could be based upon miles driven in a day, because there certainly are certain drivers that drive more hours, more miles.
That's what I was going to say. Besides the pay, which, we've always been trying to figure out up in Cave Creek, how can we keep people when we can't pay them as much as we would like? What other things would catch somebody's eye that was saying, well, there's some openings in PV, there's some openings in Deer Valley, there's some openings in Cave Creek. Oh, but look, Cave Creek's got this. As they talk about those non-tangible things that we could maybe improve for some of these folks.
I think Director Suter's looking at all kinds of ways. She is trying to think outside of the box on how to reward, how to make their jobs easier, how to make their commute easier. So there are definitely discussions that she's having and working with the staff of seeing what their needs are. She's very good in talking with the staff and again seeing what is keeping our people here and not leaving, and working with that.
And I do want to point out, I know I've had final interviews with a couple of van drivers, with a bus driver, and an office person. So, with more office support, I think some of the things we're getting about communication, that will be helped. So again, she is processing. We have applications. Again, she's been given direction as well. Not only do they need to apply, they need to be good, and they need to want to work with our kids. That's not a position that you want grouchy or to not have someone who understands that, they're the first and last relationship a kid has every day, and they can make a world of a difference. And you've heard me say it to everybody. I don't care what your job is in this district. You are all teachers, because they are always watching. They are always learning. But just wanted to give a little bit of good news that some of those places are being filled.
That's good news.
Item 7, adjournment. Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are adjourned at 7:29.